You're writing Europe from the bottom up.
It's that bad.
It is. I mean, European growth got the worst of the 2008 crisis compared to the U.S. Certainly, U.S. U.S. never really recovered after 2008 either. But at least there was somewhat of a growth trajectory, whereas Europe kind of just went. Europe had a double dip recession in the 2010s, so it fell off in 2008 really hard. Never came back. Fell off again in 2011 and 2012, and then never really came back from that. And then 2020s happened, and it's gotten even worse. Where look at GDP, just top line macroeconomic statistic, GDP in real terms, it's been flat to lower since 2022. So Europe just keeps getting further and further and further behind for a couple of different reasons. Some of it is just governmental policies which keep getting in the way. Germany is a perfect example. The saddest statistic in all macroeconomic, the entire world, is German industrial production. If you look at German industrial production, it's topped out in 2018. And it just nosedive year after year after year. German output in 2026 is about where it was in 2010, at the bottom of the Great Recession. So, I mean, yeah, that's the kind of thing we're talking about.
Because of policy, yeah?
Policy has a lot to do with it, because now it's really hard and inefficient to make anything in Germany specifically. I mean, they closed down all their nuclear plants, which made electricity expensive, labor's expensive. We also have to remember that European demand never really recovered either. So supply is difficult. It's unprofitable to make anything there, which makes it difficult for demand to ever recover. And you get locked into this downward spiral. So what happens when you have an energy shock in an economy that's in a crappy place to begin with? In fact, that's one of the things I always laugh about, is that Christine Lagarde of the ECB. In fact, every single ECB official last fall kept saying Europe is in a good place. Europe is in a good place, almost like they were trying to fool themselves. If I keep saying Europe's in a good place, maybe it'll come true. And that's the reason why, because Europe has been in a mess for a very, very long time. And then you throw an energy shock on top of it. It's not going to be inflationary. It's going to be, totally recessionary.
Okay. What else? What other economies I want to ask you about other than China and the US? What are economies to be on the lookout for? And Pakistan's still way too far to get on the global stage, I assume. But India catching up, is the sexiest economy 10, 15 years ago, as the new China 2.0, more potential than China, etc. Is that still the case? Because they do have a lot of inefficiencies, a lot of corruption. The system isn't great, but I'm not sure if it's improving. There's a lot of talent there.
India has potential, but it also has, like everybody else, it's got, you just hit the nail on the head there. It's got a lot of lingering leftover structural inefficiencies and drags and frictions that certainly will hinder its growth. And it's got a long way to go. I mean, India could be the next China, but that's, decades away. I mean, India is still relatively small, but it's growing fast. And it's one of the most dependable economies. So if you're looking for a marginal signal about where the direction of the economy is, I always look at India. And I always look at the Indian rupee, because the Indian rupee is also always tied to euro-dollar mechanics. So dollar conditions, liquidity, that kind of thing. So the rupee is a somewhat of a decent bellwether for global dollar conditions, because of how important India has become, at least at the margins, becoming a truly emerging market that has a pathway forward. So India is definitely one to pay attention to. And right now, India has held up relatively well, despite the fact that it has borne basically the brunt of the Middle East crisis and the shutdown in oil. India has held up, but it's one of those situations. Say that again?
Because of Russian oil?
Not just Russian, Middle Eastern oil. India gets tons of oil from the Middle East. So they were talking about, rationing diesel fuel, which was, some of that was price inefficiencies in government-run businesses, but still, India got close to an energy shortage for a while there. But energy prices overall, an economy that's still growing and it's still difficult and still has a high proportion of poor people in its population, India would be susceptible to an energy shock. So you've got the growth potential, and then the short-run negatives that come from oil prices going up. So India is definitely one. Another one to watch as far as the developed world. Canada's one to watch at the margins, as well as the UK. The UK is another one that has been absolutely struggling, maybe even worse than Europe has, just because the UK is a complete and utter mess. And of course, now it's a political mess on top of everything else. So those are two to definitely watch at the margins.
Watch in a bad way the UK, Canada as well. I had, what's the gentleman that has a channel, the gentleman from Canada? He's got a channel, an economic channel. He's regular on the show. Anyway, he's telling me about how he's Canadian, he's based in Canada, and how bad the Canadian economy is doing. But so when you say these economies to watch, you mean in a bad way or in a good way?
Either one. I mean, you could look, we're always looking for any type of scenario. It could be a situation where something goes right and the energy shock proves to be minimal. We escape the classic historical energy shock case and somehow survive it all. You want to look for clues about whether or not there's going to be a reflationary or even a recovery situation developing. So you want to watch marginal economies to see if maybe they're defying expectations and moving into the plus column. So Canada, UK, if they start really putting up big numbers, big positive numbers, that would suggest, okay, maybe there is a positive, plausible scenario here. It would be unlikely because, again, what markets are positioned for and what markets are pricing doesn't seem to give that much of a chance or much legitimate chance, but it's certainly possible. Anything is possible. It's a complex system. So there's definitely positives to watch for, but also on the same ticket, more negatives because, yeah, Canada is definitely in a bad situation. And it doesn't seem likely that it's going to change for the positive. So confirmation of the downside would come if you get more negative numbers.
I'm trying to find the name of the gentleman because I think you should go on his show. He's got a great finance show. He's been on my show a couple of times. Which economy suffered the most? There it is. David Lynn. I knew it was David Lynn, but I couldn't find it on my calendar. David Lynn. He's got a channel. You should jump onto it. Which economy suffered the most from this war?
We don't know yet. It's way too early to tell. Way too early to tell.
Which one do you think will suffer the most?
I think China is going to have a rough time, but I think Europe is going to be the big one.
More than Asia?
Yeah, because Europe was struggling to begin with, and
Jesus
it seems like they've been
Christ,
flirting with the edge for years, and so it doesn't take much to push a weak economy over the edge.
And which big economies in Europe? Which one's the sickest out of Germany, France, Italy, UK? Which one's the sickest out of those?
The funny thing is, it's like the exact opposite of after 2008, 2009. It was like, the Northern European countries, the bigger countries seem to be doing really well. And the Southern Europeans, Italy and those, what they used to call them, the pigs, the PIIGS. Yeah. Now it seems like the script is completely flipped. Now you've got the Northern European economies like Germany has done just absolute poor. In France. So basically the economies who are doing poorly are Germany, France, the Netherlands.
The pigs are flying pigs now. They're doing well.
Flying. Yeah, exactly. The pigs sprouted wings and they're flying. Spain is another one. Suddenly Spain is a booming place, which again, you could, why Spain is actually doing it. There's a number of question marks about it, but really it's the biggest two, Germany and France, that are dragging the euro area down. And it looks like that's not going to change anytime soon either.